Yep, we are good to go. Okay, welcome everyone to a new series on Last Play Live called The Deep Dive. Here I'm going to be playing through a variety of games and talk about what they do well, what they do wrong, and talk a little bit specifically about structure, about theming, about how gameplay and story work together, and a lot of the stuff you don't get from video game reviews when you're looking for quick, is this game fun, is this game worth buying. This is going to be more about the more structural, what they were trying to do, whether or not it worked. And I should have turned on subtitles because I'm going to be talking through this all, and it's going to be difficult to explain. So, one thing to talk about, this game came out in 2012, extremely good graphics for the time, and was long awaited because it was the longest Final Fantasy in development for a long time. Everyone was waiting for it. It came out. A lot of people didn't like it. And as someone who's been playing Final Fantasy series since Final Fantasy VII, that a lot of people not liking it was actually pretty unsurprising. Almost every Final Fantasy that has come out since Final Fantasy VI has faced a lot of backlash for being not what people liked. And there are a lot of cynical reasons for that, and a lot of very unflattering reasons for that. The one that I mostly follow is the idea that the Final Fantasy series is different than most other series in that each individual instance of it, each individual title, is so vastly different than the ones that preceded it. It changes the gameplay and the story in ways that are much more significant than you would between, say, Baldur's Gate 1 and Baldur's Gate 2, or even Kingdom Hearts. And all of the when you have video game sequels or numbered series, they tend to have things in common with them. Like even the Dragon Warrior games are fairly similar all the way through. But Final Fantasy games as a whole have never really been that similar to the one preceding them. The only exception maybe being Final Fantasy VI was kind of similar to Final Fantasy V. But even then, that's a bit of a stretch. So what we have here is a classic storytelling idea. It's beginning in the middle of things. We don't really know much. We just know that they're on a train, and she just beat up all the guards. Which is a classic storytelling maneuver. You don't tell people what's going on. You just kind of introduce the story, have things happen as they happen, and we'll figure it out as we go along. Of course, it helps when you have this really cool techno world where you're just pulling out a rocket launcher for no reason and blowing stuff up. Like this is a classic start for most storytelling. Of course, big criticism being that this is a video game, and I'm holding the controller like this. It's a pretty fair criticism for most video games that you should be able to play through the things that you want people to enjoy, that they should be able to at least have some sort of input. Though JRPGs as a whole have been pretty, don't really have the same expectations genre-wise that a lot of Western games do, that these kind of big cutscenes are a little bit more tolerated by the audience. And that's especially going to be the case when, we get to take control right away here. As our little train gets derailed by Mr. Scorpion, who is not happy about the fact that we took over this train. Okay. So here we are, now that we're not in movie mode. The graphics, not quite as good, but, still groundbreaking for PS3 times. This is still 5 years later, is standing up graphics-wise, which is more than you can say about a lot of 5-year-old games, so it's quite impressive.
Watch and learn.
Aha, watch and learn. It's funny because we're about to have a combat tutorial. Nice. And yeah, we're gonna skip it. I've played this game enough that I do not need this. And by play this game enough, I mean I 100%ed it 5 years ago. Skip. Just gotta remember the commands. Pretty sure I can't switch paradigms. No. So really all we do is beat it up until it's ready to go. Now you'll notice I don't use the auto battle, which is something I'll get into more in depth later about the auto battle versus the not auto battle, but essentially I'm never a huge fan of letting an AI make decisions for me, even if they end up making the same decisions as the AI does. I've noticed that this game's auto battle is actually pretty good at doing what is best for the situation, though gets a lot of the small things wrong, which makes it a little bit frustrating to use if you're actually looking to do well rather than just succeed, because simply succeeding at this game is surprisingly easy. There's not really all that much that it can do to throw you off if you just choose a paradigm of Commando, Sentinel, Medic. You can beat the game easily with that. It just won't be that engaging. It's akin to level grinding to level 75 and spamming attack to beat all the bosses in the old Final Fantasies. It is a strategy that works, but it is quite possibly the dullest strategy. And that's one thing that Final Fantasy is often criticized for, having a lot of grind, despite the fact that really, since Final Fantasy IV, there hasn't been much grind in any Final Fantasy game that is needed. Because all of the bosses that you face, all of the encounters that you have can be overcome by good strategy or by leveling up a lot. And for a lot of people who aren't familiar with turn-based fightings or with JRPGs, it's hard to recognize when you've lost because your strategy wasn't good enough and when you've lost because your characters were simply too weak. Because it is a lot of watching numbers, looking at things progress, and gearing up, knowing the difference between a plus 10 spirit weapon and a plus 10 M defense weapon. And really, most people don't play video games to do theoretical math. I, however, do. So these kind of games aren't even an issue for me. I actually do enjoy the number watching, the number crunching, as really anyone who is really deep into Minecraft can tell you, like, just getting the hang of a complex and difficult system can be entertaining in and of itself, even if it is attached to basically a system used to play itself. And then we have comic relief Saz, sort of comic relief, mostly in the fact that he is the guy who says what the hell is going on, echoing the audience's sentiment that nobody knows what the hell is going on. Lightning, of course, being similar to Squall in Final Fantasy VIII in that she doesn't actually say what she's thinking.
I mean, you are Sanctum, aren't you? What are you doing trying to stop the Purge? Why don't you tell me that?
I was a soldier.
Hey, where do you think you're going?
The difference is between Lightning and Squall is that whereas in Final Fantasy VIII you got an into Squall's head, like half of the game is listening to what Squall is thinking in those and what he isn't saying. Whereas in this, you don't really get a good sense of what Lightning is thinking, especially on the first playthrough. It actually took me a long time to appreciate Lightning as a character because you don't get that access to her inner monologues, and it's very difficult to understand her internal character struggles because of that. No, I want the... no, I don't need it. Yes. I am a monster that does Y inverted, X inverted. Oh no, not these settings. Y standard, X inverted. Oh crap. It went forward. Oh no. Quick. To the options. No, we just want inverted X. Thank you. Turn all the subtitles on. Yeah, let's turn those help messages on. Just in case I, forget about everything that's going on. This camera's not working for me. I'll figure out the settings we need. I'm so happy that game started doing this. Let you change camera settings. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Let you change camera settings in a way that, that works for you, as opposed to just having a system and then you just have to deal with that system. Alright, let's play it safe and save the game. Even though there's really no way to get a hard game over in this game. Really, it just, one time long ago, There was a power outage after a couple hours of playing when I hadn't saved, and I've been suspicious of it ever since. Oh yeah, how do I use attack? Oh, well, they saw me. I done goofed. But it's okay, they're together so I can blitz it. Easy. It's actually, for all, the battle system is actually really interesting in that it does give you some interesting looking battle scenarios.
What do you suppose this
I have
is?
no idea.
The army leaving its toys out now?
Whatever. It gives you some very interesting visual combat maneuvers, even though essentially it's often no different than just mashing attack, as many other Final Fantasy games have just been about mashing attack. So it's not really revolutionary as far as that combat is dealt with, but it gives you a very interesting thing to watch, which is, you know, which is not nothing. It would not be until Final Fantasy XV that there's not a numbered Final Fantasy that has a, let's say, dynamic combat system. One that simply mashing the attack button isn't necessarily going to work out for you. Alright, how do we get them all together? There we are. I missed them all, didn't I? Yep. Fine, making me do it the normal way. Of course, a lot of the tricks that you get access to aren't available here in Tutorial Land. A game that, which does eventually have me get to the point that this game is often said to have a 20-hour tutorial, which is unfair in a lot of ways as a description of what is and is not a tutorial. It is true that 20 hours into the game there is a massive change in the way that it plays, but to say everything that comes before that is a tutorial is, yeah, it's unfair at the best of times. Now, one thing to notice is environmentally, like this is actually a real cool shot where you're running down and there's the city in the distance and you can see it all. One thing this game does well is that the settings are all very involved and the cities have a life to them that you can tell just by looking at it.
Better to die than get sent to Pulse.
And the color schemes are very interesting and they play with color a lot. All the different environments have a very stark and interesting color schemes that really just lends to how pretty this game looks, not just graphically but artistically. Hello. Go quick and yes. Similar to all other JRPG introductory sequences, it really doesn't have much to tell you. This one is good because these are coded to stagger before they die, which means that you get to see this good old stagger mechanic in action. Which, as far as JRPG mechanics goes, is actually pretty good. It means that when you focus one unit at a time, you stagger one and destroy one unit pretty quickly. And it makes sustained offense rewarding and in a way that is really, really obvious. That's a real cool thing that it does. Is this? Yeah, it's just another one of these. Ooh, maybe I can buy something? Nice. In case you're really bad at the game and need to buy a bunch of potions. Oh. Now one of the... Oh, got the preemptive strike. One of the major and valid criticisms of the game, to a certain extent, is that the level design is a little bit uninspiring in that most of the levels for the first part of the game are just extended hallways. And there are certain reasons why that's the case from a design perspective that I'll eventually get into, but it's just worth noting that... can I get up there? Yeah, there we go. It is worth noting that these long extended hallways is definitely one of the game's weaker points here at the beginning, where there's not a lot in the way of exploration you can do. Like, I got this little pathway I was able to go through for that extra item, which is cool. But every time the game does that, the side paths are just a little bit too short. They're a little bit too brief. There's not a lot of just branching exploration paths, kind of the way you do in a lot of Metroid games, where you can see a long, narrow, like winding path off you can go to, like a bonus area where maybe you'll find something cool at the end of it. This game does do that, but all of those paths are so short that it just feels like it's not optional. It's just additional legwork you have to do to get the item that you could just do anyways. And it does lead to one of the game's most vocal criticism, is that it's just a long extended hallway that you run through until the game is over. Which, for many reasons, is an unfair criticism. But I'll eventually talk about this game's approach to linearity when we get a little bit farther in the storyline. I'm going to try and keep the spoilers to a minimum. I'm not going to say no spoilers. This game is 5 years old and has 2 sequels already, so a certain amount of spoilers are going to happen pretty much all the time. And no, I do not need an item usage tutorial. A certain amount of spoilers are inevitable, and I'm not going to spend that much effort trying to avoid them. So, but I'm not necessarily going to start talking about all of the endgame hype concept stuff when really we're just talking about the beginning here. So in a moment to moment, this introductory sequence is a bit long, but that's mostly because I've done this before and I'm not really learning anything. I imagine if you're actually following tutorials and doing stuff, I don't remember. Nice. Oh, yeah, that's something happening. I don't remember this being that hard, especially that hard to get through the first time I did it. Because, yeah, if this is something you're learning, tutorials are always more engaging when you're learning the game for the first time. And this isn't exactly the best tutorials. It does do well at explaining the game as you're playing it, rather than making you... Oh. Rather than just giving you a out-of-context tutorial land where you learn how to play the game and then the game starts. Instead... Haha, you broke her little gravity thing. Instead, it does actually make you play the game as you learn and introduce small features one at a time. And to its credit, there are a lot of features that it ends up telling you in this way. It's one of the reasons that it's told to have a 20-hour tutorial, is that it introduces new features slowly and constantly as the game progresses, rather than all at once at the beginning. So you do get a slow drip of content and slow, new, more advanced ways to deal with the threats that come your way. Even though, rather than just giving them to you all off the bat, because that can backfire pretty easily. Alright, this is a good place to be. Alright, Saz, stagger them. Thank you. No, they're beating up on Saz. If only I had more AoE. There we go. One thing about the Final Fantasy XIII series as a whole is that the gameplay gets much, much better as the sequels advance, though the story does the exact opposite. You have Final Fantasy XIII, which in my opinion is the weakest gameplay-wise, but the strongest story-wise, and Final Fantasy XIII-3, which is the weakest story-wise, but the strongest gameplay-wise, and I mean that in a big way. Final Fantasy XIII-3's storyline is actually incredible. Final Fantasy XIII-3's gameplay is actually incredible in a lot of ways. The way that it streamlined this Final Fantasy XIII A to B system in a way that works when you're only controlling one character against massive foes, and turn blocking and reacting in real time into the thing. It's probably the best combat system in a Final Fantasy game, and that's including Final Fantasy XV, which is also a very well made combat system, though has its flaws. Turn ugly? A bridge just blew up behind us. Oh, yeah, I guess that's good point, Lightning. And here we have first boss. Yeah, we know how chains work, man. But thanks for filling my ATB bar while that went on. Uh-oh, he's charging. Wasted that blitz. Let's take you out. And take you out. I got staggered. Forgot that this game does that. But it's okay, we'll take out the Marauder and it'll be easy. Spam that attack. It's the tutorial mission, so there's really no way we can lose. Unless I just let Saz get injured. But he's about to get staggered, so it's fine. Does this extend? Yeah, we don't really extend the stagger. They're staggered for X time. I'm starting to remember a lot of just the nuances of this game. Since it's been such a long time I've actually played, I'm forgetting quite all of the less obvious tricks that come with the game. Alright, in case you hadn't figured out the stagger system, that's the one that tells you about that.
What's your angle?
Saz asks you who are you, Lightning thinks about it and decides not to respond. If this were Final Fantasy VIII, yeah, you'd see that internal monologue she's having in the background while Saz is talking to her, but it's one of the disadvantages of the advent of voice acting almost.
My angle.
Is that what Final Fantasy VIII did with Squall's inner monologue happening in tandem with conversations? It doesn't really work when everything's supposed to be voiced. It works in Final Fantasy VIII because everything's in text form, which means that you have Squall's little text boxes popping up beside everything else. And it doesn't really interrupt the flow of things, whereas there's really no functional way to get Lightning's inner monologue without simply having her in a monologue in parentheses, just in between things, and I have a feeling that would not be very entertaining. I have a feeling that would be vastly less interesting than it was in text form. And now we get a little bit of background to the good old propaganda of Cocoon here, demonstrated in great irony here. This is essentially cognitive dissonance in summary. A very simple concept: the government is lying to its people, and these rebellions are trying to overthrow that.
Migration. More like extermination.
And there's you telling you all of that directly in case you missed it.
So sorry. I didn't mean to.
These people need heroes.
Too bad Snow's not that hero.
Here. You keep your cool, and they will too. You got it?
Got it.
What's our motto?
Snow's an interesting character,
The army's no match for Nora.
in that he's essentially your average JRPG protagonist, only he's not really the protagonist here. He's a guy who tries to be the hero and massively fails. Spoiler, Snow fails to be a hero here. And that really sets up his relationship with the characters for the rest of the game. And that's one thing a lot of Final Fantasy games do really well. It's make good character stories.
We didn't do anything wrong.
Nice, 50 gil, I'm rich. It's following these 6 people down a journey of character growth and all of that stuff. And although the plots of the game are very complex, it's partially because they are very long. And it's hard to have a simple plot that lasts for, the 40 to 60 hours people expect a JRPG to be. So the stories get a bit complicated, but one thing they've always done well is make characters that are easy to connect to and easy to understand and have them develop in interesting ways. That is in fact one of my biggest criticisms of Final Fantasy VI, is that because there are, I don't know, like 20 characters in that game, it's very difficult to get a deep connection or a lot of development in any particular one of those characters. Rather, you just get a an introduction to these characters, enough to make you interested in them, but then the game is over before they have a chance to develop them into something more than just, hey, I'm interested in that character.
Let's prove it.
Alright, it's Snow's time. I think they're going to teach me how to play as a Sentinel now. Nope, but I do have this hand grenade. Ability that I never get ever again. Haha, so good. It sucks that Snow runs out of hand grenades by the end of this tutorial. I'd really like to use them in the other parts of the game, but it does make sense that he loses access to them, what with the thing that happens shortly after this tutorial land. Hey, who wants a little gift? Whoop! Interesting that Gado and Lebro's HP is question mark, as if giving it a real number would somehow break the immersion. It's kind of weird.
No more. There are soldiers everywhere.
Yo, boss. What's the plan?
So here we have Snow talking to his
Charge in, guns blazing.
squad, a group of characters that you basically don't see again after the tutorial. Though you actually do see them. It's an interesting case where they would be interesting characters if they were like recurring sidekicks, but given the structure of the game, it is understandable that they're not recurring sidekicks. So they have that character development, and you don't really get to see any of the rest of it. There we go. Just tossing grenades. Don't mind me. Ooh, that was good. And you punched. Didn't want to get punch drunk over here. It's funny because I punched you and now you're dead.
Same plan as always. Hit him hard, and hit him again.
Yep. A strategy that would never work if we were not the video game protagonists. And actually had to worry about like proper tactics and strategy. Oh, did we just straight up kill those guys? Nice. Oh yeah, these guys stagger. Nice. It's a weird battle stance by that guy. You have a gun. Well, I guess it would make sense if you were behind a barricade. Just keep low and then shoot. Only out in the open, it just kind of makes it look goofy.
Don't you kids go falling behind now.
Oh, that's how you open the map. Hello, friendos. How would you like this? I don't think they liked it. This is the part of the tutorial where we get attached to the idea of playing Snow. Just in case you like the idea of a tough, punchy guy more than a sword-wielding, fast user. Though Lightning and Snow do make good party members together, the best party members are, of course, the Lightning, Fang, and Vanille. Any party that doesn't include those three is just weaker. But that's just personal.
You all okay?
Snow's here to save the day. Plot twist, he sure doesn't. Come on, man. You're carrying several guns. You can't just go running around.
Don't worry. No one's moving to Pulse today. We'll clear you a path out of here, so be ready to...
Let me fight with you. You can't expect us to just sit here.
Well,
Help.
Yep. Please, let us help.
actually one thing that this game did way better than its predecessors, Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy XII,
Volunteers front and center.
the characters don't look doofy. Because I vastly remember Final Fantasy X and Wakka, who looks like someone took an iron to his face that was on, and just everything looks wrong, and the shading and the shape of it all. This you only have any complaints about these character models. They work.
Hold it steady.
Yeah, feels good.
Yeah, there's a laser sight for you.
Show me again.
You got it.
Really good for civilian militia.
You sure?
Yeah. Moms are tough.
So I was not gonna argue with that.
Right.
It's the last one, boss.
I don't need it. I got punchy fists.
All right, last one. Somebody take it.
No, I can't.
Okay, little kid.
Push comes to shove. Keep him safe.
First impression
That's-
of snow? All talk.
That's irresponsible, giving a gun to someone who looks like they're
Lay
a
low and you'll be
childish
fine.
14-year-old.
We'll clear out the area.
One thing to note there is that you did get a sample of Vanille's inner monologue, because Vanille is the narrator of the game. Which is really important because in many ways Vanille is probably the main character, in that she has
Right.
the biggest connection to the main story of all the characters, and is essentially the one through which it all revolves around. And so, her being the narrator is actually really important for that reason, and also for really spoilerific reasons that happen at the end of the game. But suffice to say, it's interesting that Vanille's the narrator, so you do get actually a sample of Vanille's inner monologue, whereas it would really help to get Lightning's.
The SciComm, you hear me?
And I wonder how different the game would be if Lightning was the narrator rather than Vanille, and you actually got that. You actually got that internal struggle and her thoughts on things more explicitly than you do right now.
Stay sharp.
Alright, luckily all of these guys just hang out here, waiting for people to charge them directly. Whip! Hilarious. Yeah, let's toss this one over here. Yep. God, I forgot how much I like those hand grenades. How much you miss them when you're dealing with just Snow and his punchy. Because when actually the characters do get their Lassie powers, I feel like Snow got the worst of them. But actually kind of matches his character. He wants to protect people, so he gets the Sentinel. It makes sense. How can you lose when all I do is throw grenades? This is, of course, continuing the theme of JRPGs where guns are way more useless in video games than they would be in realistic situations.
Shake things up a little.
Though in the same way, you have the old JRPGs where stabbing someone with a giant sword does a moderate amount of damage. You'd imagine in that kind of situation, a bullet, which is a small weapon, can't really do all that much damage, whereas its bonus is its range and its firing speed. Which is why it's the case that in most of these kind of games, the bullet users are just fast attackers. Ooh, it's a behemoth. I actually do like this way that they reimagined behemoths for the Final Fantasy XIII, and the way they kind of meshed with like mechanical versus... They made like mechanica and magical things similar. They just kind of combine them together, so all of the monsters are like semi-androids. I think he's gonna do that claw again. That's gonna hurt everyone. How? Ooh, you're gonna throw potions at me? Oh, and it was an AoE potion? Oh yeah, all the potions are AoE, I forgot. Because it's Final Fantasy XIII. Another common criticism is the idea that because your health regenerates fully between combats, there's no real... You don't have to be concerned with longevity. You don't have to be concerned about using all your abilities early on and not having leftover spells or items for the boss. because you don't actually have MP. All of your ability, the only thing you really have to manage in this game is time. Your ATB determines your ability to deal damage, nothing else. And you do get techniques which take AP, but they are not quite the same. Those are more akin to those rare abilities that you would never use in a normal Final Fantasy game. You know, your summons, your Quake ability, and your Libras. All of which are okay, but not really the kind of, like, thing that people want, with the ability to cast a stronger ability when the situation comes to it. You instead just have to manage your ATB in a way that makes sense. Well done! You succeeded the maneuver, but didn't actually do it. Now you're just gonna wait for them to point this big cannon at you. Good thing moms are tough, though. Get wrecked.
I told you, didn't I?
Yeah.
Moms are tough.
Now that was unnecessary. You could have just said, told ya, and then took him up. That would have been a little bit more effective storyline-wise. Ah! Still got its shot off. That's a shame. And now for important character development. And now Snow feels like he let everyone down. Classic.
Get him home. Please.
Hold on!
Now, one thing that they've done well here is this is a classic, like, end of the story or important thing that would happen partway through the story, but they kind of just get on with it. They know that this is kind of just a character you just met, don't really have any strong attachments for, and so it just kind of moves on. Oh, Snow falls anyways. Good job. And yeah, it's you get to see it through its effect on other characters rather than it being an emotional event in and of itself.
We have to move.
Right.
Small bit of good storytelling. Vanille's accent. Vanille and Fang have a very strange way of speaking, especially compared to all the other characters, which makes sense when you figure out the not-so-spoiler thing that they're both from Pulse. And so they speak differently because, you know, as a nod to the fact they're not from the same place as everyone else. It's a good touch. It's a good attention to detail. So yeah, that was Hope's mom dying. The central facet to his character development and his relationship with Snow specifically, which comes up a lot. Some say more than necessary.
Massacre. Those people won't even live long enough to die on Pulse.
That was the idea.
What?
Sanctum logic. They conjured up the purge to eliminate a threat.
Lightning pretending to be an asshole for half a second.
I mean, why carry the danger all the way to Pulse? Why not just stamp it out here? Execution masquerading as exile. That's all the purge ever was.
Relocation to Pulse. How does the government get away with pulling crap like that?
Now that we're living in 2017, it's a little bit more plausible than
And you
previously
this was
thought.
gonna happen?
The purge was PSICOM. Private Sanctum troops, not the Guardian Corps.
PSICOM, Guardian Corps.
They're all just words.
Soldiers are soldiers, aren't they?
I mean, no, Guardian Corps sounds more like the
And the
National
Marines
Guard.
Are enemies of the state. Tell a soldier to kill an enemy, and you really think it's gonna matter what uniform he's wearing?
Might have mattered to that one. Couldn't shoot. Got himself shot instead.
How about you? Order say shoot, you pull the trigger?
No, that's specifically why she's here.
Fine. Forget I
Like,
asked.
it's very clear that she is not following anyone's orders, Saz.
Wait. What?
Ooh, another boss. Who would have thought? Only a tutorial land, so it's probably gonna... No, accompanying tutorial? Is this gonna be a thing for us to mash attack at? Okay. Oh, it's beating up Saz real good. If only we had a sentinel to pull hate. Oh, good, it switched to me naturally. That makes my job easier. Come on, Saz, we need a stagger. It's actually kind of wrecking us. There we go. The way that the game does stagger systems is pretty cool. It was a good addition to a rather stale ATB system that existed before it. Though Final Fantasy XIII 2 and 3 would do it much better. As is true of most gameplay elements. Final Fantasy XIII 2 fixed almost every problem with the combat system that Final Fantasy XIII has. And really made a pretty solid game out of it. Whereas Final Fantasy XIII just took it in a slightly different direction that just was quite incredible. And there are very specific things that both of those games did well, and probably deserving of their own deep dives. Though maybe not a full playthrough of Final Fantasy XIII 3, because mostly it's just the gameplay you want to see. The story is nothing real special. Bring you to justice in this case, a euphemism for shoot at you.
Sarah.
What a weird way to spell Sarah.
Just what you were looking for.
Yeah. Right in there.
The post-file C.
Words that don't really make a lot of sense because we started in the middle of things. So, we got Falsi, Lassie, we got Guardian Corps, Psycom, Sanctum.
Don't worry.
Oh, Hope's already mad that his mother's dead. You're going to witness why his fan nickname is Mope. Because that's what he does for most of the game. Hey, here's this gun that I wasn't able to use. Maybe you'll have better luck with it. It's cool that your mom died.
It's too much, isn't it? Face it later. Ciao!
Hey, wait!
You left the gun behind? Hope.
You said it made you happy when I smiled, didn't you? But really, I was afraid. I was always...
Story time. Vanille's using the past tense there, which basically signals to you that it's Vanille reminiscing about things that happened. Specifically, why the narrator is reminiscing will come up and won't really be revealed until the very end of the game.
Post-file C is different from the sanctums.
But does really reveal to
All things being equal,
the audience
I guess
that
it's-
Vanille is a very important character, and that's basically what to take of the fact that she's the narrator. Generally speaking, if one of the main characters is the narrator, it means that something really important happens either to them or because of them. Of course, if the narrator is... Ooh, nice.
She can do it. So
She used a magic gravity thing. It wouldn't really... Also, the leap is... Now she's got to save you. Oh, no. Luckily you landed in that too. Here comes the baby chocobo. Nope, just the Pulse Falsi. Yeah, if the narrator is a non-main character, usually it's way less important to pay attention to.
Come on, come on.
game advocating slapping people to wake them up, which I'm not sure is scientifically supported as a way to wake up an unconscious person.
What about the others?
Clearly Snow doesn't know.
They didn't die. They couldn't have died.
Of course not.
Of course not, they're heroes. Heroes never die.
Hey, get a grip, man. What's wrong with you?
I don't know. Maybe he watched people die. He thought he was a hero.
Get him home. Get who home?
Oh, what a shame. She forgot to mention who her actual son was.
Toss me that.
Or hand it to him. Okay, fine. Throw the gun.
What are you doing?
So what are you afraid of, huh? You're supposed to be the hero.
Yeah, he's not.
She's waiting there, ain't she? Your lovely bride-to-be? Isn't it about time you picked her up?
Yeah.
There's actually one thing this game does fairly well in this opening sequence. It uses these short conversations to give you insight on the character's motivations. Slowly, in a way that doesn't feel like exposition. Rather, that doesn't feel like an info dump. It's a good use of dialogue and exposition to get the point across. And is a good tool if you don't have time to tell everyone everything. Just tell them enough that they can kind of figure it out on their own. Ooh. New equipment. Actually, the equipment management in this game is, you know, not the best ever, but I've seen worse. I've seen worse in Final Fantasy games. As a supplementary part of a JRPG, it's actually pretty good at pretty good system because, oh boy, because you don't really have a lot of options as far as what they do have equipped on. It's mostly just it is a good way of avoiding that. Here's a strictly stronger piece of equipment. Rather, it gives you choice. It gives you equally good but different choices. And those are the things that really feel like, and that's really the important part about most equipment management and most character development, is that you don't want to make someone feel like they're choosing between the good option and the bad option. You want to make them feel like here's two equally good options, and it really just comes down to what you want.
I want every weapon ready to fire. Stay sharp.
All right, on my go.
Right.
Wait, the plan was just Godot go and fire? Why'd you have a countdown? Why just not have a go? If it was just waiting for the optimal time, you could have just said, and the backs are turned, go. I only managed to kill 2 of them before the fight even started, though, so that's solid plays, Godot. Alright. Despite the fact that the combat system is very rudimentary at this point, it is still an entertaining play because the visuals are so engaging, because the way the combat camera focuses on the action and the way that everything works together, the way that the combat maneuver flows, the way that the combat environment flows. It's interesting enough to watch that even though right now all I'm doing is matching attack, it feels pretty entertaining.
You just protect them all, right?
Something on your mind?
Snow's character development.
You got plenty of time for thinking on the way, hero.
Essentially, Snow was told that he had to save Hope, though Hope's mom forgot to mention the name of her son, and so Snow doesn't know who he's supposed to save. So I was like, how about I save everyone I can, and eventually I'll do it right. It's decent, it's a decent way of looking at things. Decent character development. Kind of shows Snow's dedication to being a hero, even though, in many cases, he isn't.
Hey, it's us. It's us.
And it turns out all your little friendlies are actually still alive.
Since when do you care about kids?
Favor for a friend.
Okay.
Hey, Snow! You made it!
Hey, yo. So,
Hey.
you really managed to use that thing?
I think I'm done. You're done when we are. Ow! What's it?
That's the one.
Didn't you have something to tell him?
Yeah,
All right then.
but I...
Okay, Hamlet.
I'll go with
Are
you.
you gonna do it or not?
What?
You have no idea what it was like. Oh.
Everyone safe?
The army's no match for Nora.
The army's no match for these 4 kids. Can't possibly be defeated.
Okay. Let's keep it that way, all right?
Benil, best wingman, especially when the thing she's going for is rampant murder. Go on, Hope, shoot him in the face. Ah, she tried.
I'll swing by the vestige. Keep the kids out of trouble.
You got it. Say hi to the missus for me. You go skirt chasing, I take care of the kids. Some husband.
Dinner's on me.
Better be home cooking.
When's the wedding, lover boy?
Well, don't worry. None of you are invited.
We're still going.
Are you serious? What about me?
Yeah, LeBro didn't do anything wrong.
Catch you later.
Oh.
The Hope and Snow relationship is interesting because it's a example of the way that stories often create conflict is by making it so that people don't communicate. People having a problem and not actually talking about it. That way, you know, they don't understand where each other's coming from and they don't have the capacity to resolve their problems. Instead, they just kind of stew in them and the problems escalate into a snowball of terrible things.
It's just that...
See, Hope's big problem there is that he's mad that Snow doesn't seem visibly affected by his mother's death, despite the fact that all of us just saw that Snow was actually super bothered by Snow's death.
I think so.
But what Hope saw was just him smiling and laughing with friends, and saw it as him just not caring, whereas Snow was just really putting on a brave face.
That way.
But you gotta get the main characters together, and for Hope, the best way to do that is to be so mad at Snow that just happens this way.
If we go in there, that thing could... It could make us l'Cie. This is... I don't think I can...
You can do it.
Now you have to do it.
Here we go!
And they died. Nope. Main character power. Now we've established that that engine is super loud. They absolutely don't hear you. Not to mention the fact that they just wouldn't. They did just steal it.
The pulse fell sea. It held our future. And our fate.
That's an important line. Doesn't feel that way, but that actually is an important line. One of the main themes of Final Fantasy XIII is the concept of fate. In fact, a lot of the game is essentially a struggle between the... It's basically a representation of that old struggle between free will versus determination. Do people have free will, or are all their actions predetermined by some manner of things? Is there the capacity to make choice, or is it just the doing that which you were going to do anyways. That's the main theme of the game as a whole. And a lot of the reason this game, I think, does a very good job of developing that theme is that every part of the game is about that theme. From the gameplay to the story, everything is informed by that struggle.
Where is the... Oops. Well then...
Well, that's a shame. Crashed your only way out. Guess you're here for the long haul.
Guess it's just us.
What did you expect? Even soldiers know not to go near the foul sea. You become a pulse, Lassie, and you're finished.
What do you mean, finished?
Haven't you heard, Miss...
Vanille.
Huh?
My name. And yours?
Hope.
So what Vanille was hoping was for Fang to be here. But Fang actually woke up from a crystal in the meantime.
Well, since we're here... let's
Spoilers,
get around.
Vanille is a Lassie from Pulse. Not that that's much of a spoiler if you haven't played the game. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. But yeah, Fang and Vanille are not from around. In many ways.
Oh, check this out.
Hey! Vanille, where are you?
Now, when I first played this, I didn't really understand how she was able to see that, or how her, like, very specific weapon was here. But it actually super does make sense.
That's...
Uh-oh, there's a mechanical doggo there. Luckily, Hope has a boomerang that won the most impractical weapon award 3 years running. And I'm including this weird slingshot antler thing that Vanille is using. The boomerang is by far the more impractical weapon. Because there's really no...
Okay, back to exploring.
It's one of those things that, like, cool in video games, because you throw it and it comes back to you. Ignoring the physics of, you know, when something makes contact with something and transfers its force to it, it loses the ability to continue having that force. So, you know.
I thought this place was supposed to be...
Run away. So now we get the tutorial part of, you know, just exploring and dealing with... Oh yeah, we can't do this when things are nearby. Yeah, you get to explore rather than getting those little linear passageways that we got through that tutorial section. Come on, go quick. Oh, they're really fast to die anyways. So yeah, right off the bat, we've actually kind of ended the pattern of the game, giving you the linear passageways without much exploration. And it's actually really important that it happens here inside the Pulse Fal'Cie, because Pulse is the part of the game where it opens up, is the part of the game where... Yes, thank you. These guys are easy to sneak up on, so bam. Yeah, the fact that the Pulse Fal'Cie is the one where you get this exploration from is actually really important, because Pulse is the part of the... When you actually get to Pulse, it's the part of the game that opens it up to full exploration. And as a result, it's just good. It's good theming that Pulse is sort of the area where you're able to explore, and Cocoon is the place where you have a straight passageway to walk forward and nothing else. It's also important that Vanille has 3 ATB bars because, you know, she's just straight up stronger than everyone else. That's just the way things are.
Aren't you scared?
Nah,
So much.
You really don't get it.
rather it's because she really does get it.
Pulse Fal'Cie and Lassie are bad news. That's why Cocoon kicked them out. Live too close to the Fal'Cie, one-way ticket to Pulse. That's the purge in a nutshell.
If they catch us here, they'll purge us too. And then...
What's your problem?
What's my... Pulse is hell on
That's
Earth.
offensive.
We'll be okay. Calm down.
Get off me.
Wow, moody much. Did your mom just die or something?
Can you hear me? Where are you?
Oh, back to snow. Ooh boy. This looks a lot like the last dungeon now that I think about it.
Don't worry, Sarah. Your hero is on his way.
Heroes, plural, actually. Because that's how this game works.
Wonder what that's for.
Alright, let's do the thing you're supposed to do in most of these games, is go the wrong way first. Because... And nothing. Straight up nothing. Usually there's supposed to be a treasure chest or something there. But actually these the amount of work put in, like the backdrops, like the machinery interiors of the Fal'Cie, like we can see all this stuff here. That's all really well done. It's a very involved atmosphere, very dynamic environment. It's something this game does extremely well. And one of the reasons why, when James Cameron's Avatar came out a couple months after this game did, it was so underwhelming for me to watch graphics-wise, because it's like, I just came from a video game where I was watching this happen constantly and saw graphics like these all over the place. And so it's the kind of thing that, like, a video game has outdone you graphics-wise, and so why should I be interested in anything you have to say? Ah, the hand grenade. Very nice. Boom. How does it feel? And toss. Aw, I didn't get ya. Rude.
Just too easy.
We don't even get CP right now, so there's really no point to do these fights.
Just hold on, Sarah.
It's actually good that you can't farm levels in the tutorial stages. That way you don't feel like you're missing out. It actually does make sense theming-wise that you don't get XP during the tutorial stages, because I haven't really, in story, unlocked the reason why you get experience points to begin with. Ooh, you done goofed. More visuals on the interesting backdrops we get here. And now we get to find out how lightning catches up to everyone.
Still won't budge? I think the door is winning.
Why didn't I listen?
Beg your pardon?
It was me. This is my fault.
Beg your pardon?
Cover your ears.
Huh? Oh, blast charge? Oh, wait, hold on. All right, hold. All right, go for it! Make it happen!
I'm so sorry. Please let me in. Please?
Okay. It's funny because it's a coincidence.
Hey!
Right.
But that actually...
What? How'd you open it?
That's actually very interesting.
After you.
So, good all. It's the kind of stuff I was talking about where getting access to Lightning's inner thoughts would give you a lot more depth to a character, because stuff like that would be more frequent. Nice. Yeah, because scenes like that would become more frequent, where you get to see Lightning's inner monologue and she gets to say interesting things. rather than as it is, where you just kind of, from this point on, mostly, just kind of guess at that. Because she is very much Squall, not Cloud. Well, I guess Cloud to a certain extent, in that she cares deeply about everyone around her, but you'll be darned if she actually tells you that, or expresses that in any vocal capacity. There you go. I know. It's about time for me to get out of tutorial land. Which is perfect, because we're just about to get out of tutorial land. As the game may happen. Ooh boy. This is why they give you Deceptisol.
No reason to go picking fights, right?
No. Don't worry about me. I'm just running by. Sucks that I can't open those chests, but there's nothing of import in them. They're just gonna be potions, inconsiderable amount of gil, or, you know, an iron bangle or something. No real reason to get into that.
Those things are still around. Might be some soldiers trapped in here too.
But that's why they give you the Deceptisol, because if you realize that you've learned as much of the tutorial and that you're not getting experience, that you can just bypass all that.
Enemies of Cocoon. Can't show them any mercy.
But you've just been branded enemies of Cocoon. That's kind of how propaganda works. You just tell people they're the enemies, and if they hear that all the time growing up, they probably just won't question it.
There's the next one.
Ooh, I still have that Deceptisol. Oh, but it wore off. I might actually have to get into this fight. Yep. Couldn't avoid it anyways. Bring it on. I got an infinite number of hand grenades and they're coming your way.
How about this?
Easy.
All right. Hang on, baby. Your hero's on the way.
I think Snow needs to say hero a little bit more to drive the point home that he is definitely not the hero. Although maybe, like, it's easy.
Hang on, baby.
Okay, maybe they do say it enough because that repeat. Because it's very clear, actual heroes don't have to call themselves heroes, you know? They just are. Hey, good job, Snow. You're opening up the pathway for everyone.
He is here. Calling himself a hero?
How rude. Hey, Hope.
He's coming our way.
What should I do?
Tell him what you need to.
Yeah, Van Heel's speaking pattern is so weird.
But nothing I say'll change what happens.
It's actually kind of interesting that no one calls her out on that throughout the course of the game. It's just kind of the subtext, because it is very different.
We could just run away.
But Hope doesn't want to do that. He, in fact, wants to do the exact opposite of that. What up? I'm just gonna ignore you. And off I go. Oh, hey there. Oh, can't avoid this one. Nice. Take him out. actually one thing that these intro stages do very well is they force you to play every character at least once throughout the course of it, so you can get a feel for which one you like the best. Because the character you choose as your control character actually does have a huge impact on your experience of it, and this way it kind of avoids the thing that happens in a lot of Final Fantasies where it's like, or even like a lot of JRPGs where you just control, where all you do is control the main character because they're the one that's around most often. You don't really get to experience what it's like to play with as the other characters. And this way you actually get a feel for them all and can choose the one that matches your playstyle best, which is going to be different for most people. Well, it's going to be different for everyone. Not everyone's going to like playing Lightning, not everyone's going to like playing as Vanille, not everyone's going to like playing as Saz, so this way you get to figure out which is the one you want to. Oh no, it's weird, creepy monster things. It's a lot of weird, creepy monster things.
What are they?
See, you failed. This is what happens when Lassie don't complete the focus the Fal'Cie gave him.
Time for Snow to save ya.
Let's even these odds.
Nice. Thank you, Snow. Do I get the hand grenades? Ah, perfect. That's all we get to do. Yeah! Oh, they die pretty easy. Who would have thought that the ability to throw explosions all over the place is the best strategy? Not me. Woo. Oh, well.
How did you get in here? You gotta leave.
Well, Hope has something to tell you. I also do, but I'm just not going to.
Find some place to hide and keep quiet. Once I find Sarah, we'll all leave together. You'll be home in time for dinner.
You...
Wait! Who's Sarah?
My wife. Future wife, that is. She's a Pulse Lassie.
No.
She's here somewhere, along with that Fal'Cie. I gotta find her and set her free.
What's wrong with you? Why do you want to help a Lassie? They're the enemy.
Huh?
How can you save a Lassie? You're not... That's insane!
Say what you mean, Hope. You are one word away from avoiding all of the conflict that's about to
I gotta
happen.
do something, right? I'll be back.
Like, literally, if you just mention that your mom died,
Should we wait around for him and hitch a ride?
half of
Go to Pulse!
your character conflict with Snow doesn't actually happen.
When they found the Fal'Cie the other day, we were just visiting Bodum. But the army took us, threw us on that train. Because of that guy, Mom is...
Probably shouldn't leave them alone.
And he wants to help a Lassie?
Another situation where, you know, if he had decided to come back, 3 seconds earlier, maybe he would have overheard Hope talking about his mom.
Let's go with
It's that kind of near misses that is, from a storytelling perspective, a little cheap, but is also very effective at driving a conflict home. So, it works so long as people don't notice it, so apologies for pointing that out. Now that you noticed it, it actually weakens it as a storytelling tactic. You get to have your character's exposition and not have it affect everyone around them too. It's kind of like, well, I mean, he is technically Hamlet. It wouldn't be out of the question for him to just talk to the camera everything he's feeling. Soliloquies are very useful for getting people to tell you what they're intending.
Your sister.
She's a Lassie.
What?
Oh, and now you know how Lightning and Snow are related.
The Fal'Cie has her captive, but I'll find her.
I mean, maybe not directly,
Is she still...
because it's still not guaranteed
What
that
was her focus?
they're the same.
When she became a Lassie, what did the Fal'Cie order her to do? It wasn't blow up Cocoon or anything like that, was it?
I didn't ask.
Oh look, the way forward.
Listen to me. When a person gets cursed by a foul sea, they become a
Saz
Lassie.
explaining to you how things
They
work.
get given a focus, right? How do I put this? If they don't carry it out, Lassie end up as one of those things. What I'm saying is, if your sister's gone that far, I mean, she might still. How can I?
This is actually one thing the game does well, is make sure that there's always two characters together, so that they can have conversations like this, explaining the way the game works, explaining
Even if she completes her
the
focus,
universe.
there's no changing her fate.
You don't get this if you have one character
Life
working
as a
alone.
foul sea slave. Don't make her suffer.
Just say it. Any Lassie. Anyone who might ever become a Lassie should be wiped off the face of Cocoon. It's people like you that started the Purge in the first place.
Ooh, Lightning throwing out the big guns. For the introductory parts of it, there actually is quite a lot going on. Maybe I can get around you without starting a fight. There we go. Perfect. Thank you. And sneaky. Oh, we probably can't get by this guy. Nope. But because we don't even have our powers yet, it's really a boss fight of hit attack on it. And that's why 13.3 actually is so much better, because there is no mash attack, there is no just do it and deal with the monsters. You actually have to learn how monsters act, what kind of special abilities they have, and learn how to defend against them. You do have to do that to a limited extent here, though it's a little bit less obvious, and so as a result, it's a little bit less direct, your ability to defend against things. Because it actually would be quite a difficult game if they made you do the defensive switches in order to defend against the boss's harder attacks. So instead, all of them are survivable without a defensive switch, though you end up doing less well in the game as a result of it, which really only matters to people like me who actually worry about doing things, learning these systems really well and playing very well. Whereas because the game doesn't have like dynamic difficulty levels, and even if it does, you kind of have to make it so that it's passable for people who aren't willing to do absolutely everything it takes in order to pass. Oh, this counted as a preemptive strike. Fascinating. Oh yeah, they're like trying to use potions. Right, they it's a bit of like a nightmare fuel kind of thing. What these people do in combat is constantly try to use remedies on themselves to try and cure themselves of the, affliction that they have, because these are people turned into monsters. So those guys are just spamming remedies on themselves trying to cure themselves, and that's haunting because it implies they have enough of a sense to know that something's wrong, but still can't actually do anything about it. So yeah, fate worse than death. And that's a really interesting way they've upped the stakes here. Ow, that hurts. And actually that does do a lot of damage. I actually have to use a potion here. No, they're beating up on Saz. I really wish I had access to the full gamut of abilities just to get through this faster. They did make me use a potion for the first time. Oh, I gotta do it again because Saz is gonna get punched and dead. I got you covered, old man. Which I guess is good tutorial-wise, actually putting you in a situation where you straight up need to use your healing items in order to survive. But that being said, there's really no... I gotta do it again. Stop beating up on Saz. One thing that Final Fantasy 13-2 added to the mix to make things harder is the ability for that as you take damage, your maximum HP goes down, not just your current HP. So if you do poorly in fights for too long, your maximum HP gets lower and lower, and it just gets harder and harder for you to survive. And it puts a soft cap on your ability to just turtle through all your encounters. You actually have to focus on clearing fights well rather than just clearing fights. Whereas in Final Fantasy 13, it is really just about clearing individual fights. Because there is no long-term survivability to account for, you just go through it.
Time to go. We have to leave before the army.
He's not gonna let you pass.
That's a Pulse brand. That girl's a l'Cie.
I already told you that.
Pulse l'Cie are the enemies of Cocoon.
You're...
So they should die?
Listen, if she fails her focus, you know how that'll end.
And killing her is a mercy?
You came.
Sarah!
Snow is the type of person that wouldn't wait for the elevator to reach the ground.
Sarah.
Is that my hero?
And they would never on-screen meet each other again. That's not actually true. But it's almost true, which is hilarious. Given that, Sarah's the main character in Final Fantasy 13 too.
I'm taking her home.
Sis.
I'm not your sister. You couldn't protect her. It's your fault she...
Can save us.
Sarah?
You can save us. Or protect us all. Save Cocoon.
Save Cocoon? Sarah? That was your focus?
Anything. I'll do anything. Leave it to me. You'll see. I'll protect Cocoon. I'll save everyone.
Somehow. I'll make things right.
You just relax.
It's actually kind of important that her words are save Cocoon. That comes up later.
Thank you.
It's actually something this game does do well, is that a lot of the things that people say are important. Because you do have a limited amount of words in a video game. You don't have a lot of time for people to say stuff, especially in these cutscenes. So anything said in a cutscene is important enough to be remembered. They don't waste a lot of time. And that's kind of important in any video game because these stories are really long. And so you can't go about wasting time.
Sarah! Sarah!
Why is she turning to crystal?
l'Cie who fulfill their focus are transformed into crystal and gain eternal life.
Just like the story said.
Sarah, sweet dreams.
Sweet dreams?
Ooh, Lightning's
not
pissed.
sleeping. Sarah's... She's...
She's alive.
No.
The legend. Remember the legend. l'Cie who fulfilled their focus turn to crystal and gain eternal life. It's the same with Sarah. Eternal life. She's not dead.
As Sass says.
Sarah's my bride to be. I promise to be hers forever. I don't care how many years I have to wait.
Yeah, Lightning has enough for that.
Over! Open your eyes and face reality!
Sarah, does becoming a l'Cie really mean losing everything?
That's an interesting thing narration-wise, because that was in the present tense, which means that was what Vanille was thinking right now. Rather than previously, when it was Vanille talking in the past tense, which means it was her reminiscing. The distinction between the two is actually really important. If the game doesn't do a good job of doing that, I think it's clear enough, because even if you don't know that it's Sarah talking in past tense versus present tense, it's essentially... it gets the point across. It is still Vanille's thinking about it. Oh, dang. This one thing Final Fantasy has a lot of, just cool tech. Just here's these grappling laser beams holding it up in place. Cutting right through it, almost killing the main characters. Think of the story, guys. And yeah, Lightning and Snow's first reaction was to protect Sarah.
Must be a sanctum strike. Bring down the vestige in the foul sea right with it.
Aren't they taking it back to Pulse? That's what the patch was, right?
All they care about is getting everything from Pulse off Cocoon. Dead or alive, it's all the same.
Man, Vanille's not liking this new world she suddenly woke up in.
They'll kill us.
The way forward is clear. So as an introductory sequence, it does a good job of telling you what the basic rules of the world are, what everyone's basic motivations are.
Trench coat, where you going?
Day with the foul sea.
At least half of them. We know Snow's, Lightning's, and Hope's motivations pretty well.
To help her? Are you out of your mind, kid? That thing wants to chew us up and
Whereas Saz and Vanille still question marks. They're just kind of here. Though you very quickly get to figure out what they're all about. Lightning's pissed. Yeah, Lightning's pissed that her sister is turned into crystal. And actually the idea that Lightning is just really, really mad is something I didn't even get until my second playthrough of the game. When it becomes more... When... Oh boy. When I was able to recognize that, like, that seemed to be a primary motivator. That she just wanted... She was just lashing out as a result of her sister essentially dying. And not really as a result of her best decision making. And it actually does... There's a part in the about halfway through the game where Lightning has a change of heart that is mostly her realizing that it's not... She's just been lashing out and has been angry and decides to, you know... I wouldn't say grow up, but get over it. In order to make the right decision rather than the instinctual decision.
And she did it. You got what you want. Now let her go. Please, turn her back. I'll be your Lassie instead.
Fine. You go on begging. Like this thing gives a damn what we want!
Lightning!
Turns out, swords don't work on magical machine gods.
It's this thing's fault the purge started. And it's people who are dying. Sarah told us to save Cocoon. That means this thing needs to die.
That's a good way of thinking about it, but that's not quite what Sarah meant. The wheel of fate is turning. Yeah, just the monster design in this game. Everything's got like robot elements and mechanical elements. Also fits in with the, you know, determination fate things, because robots don't have free will. They just are set to go in a certain way and fulfill those designs. And the idea that Fal'Cie can't change their fates is actually an essential part of this all. The general reason being that Fal'Cie exists, and though the fact that they're extremely like powerful godlike things, they actually lack the capacity to make meaningful changes and require the use of Lassie in order to get anything done. Oh, I forgot about this boss fight. We actually fight this thing. Yeah, this guy's got a chocobo hair. That's all you know.
Got these things. Might as well use it.
Thanks.
Boss fight. Does Blitz hit everything? Sure doesn't. Ow! That also hurts. And this way we actually get all attacking the same target because the AI is a particular way. Ow, it hurts so much. Take him out, and I'll use a potion, of which we have a lot of. Oh. Is it even worthwhile taking those things out, or should we just kill this thing? We can't build its stagger gauge enough. But at least it doesn't fight back. So yeah, it's a tutorial fight, just letting you know that sometimes you just gotta kill the ads in order to get some free attacks on the boss. Ow. Wasted that attack by missing. No, don't hit the anima. Hit the manipulator. Yeah, it doesn't really like us. Yeah, that is a counterattack. Just like the scorpion thing in the beginning of Final Fantasy VII, it's making you realize you gotta... that sometimes you don't attack the main thing. You attack everything surrounded first. Actually, playing as Saz is pretty fun because of the way he shoots his gun. It's very ridiculous. It's too much just to point a gun at a thing and shoot at them. You gotta do it with flair. Yep. Just wait for them to finish their weird thing. There we go. Try not to die, Snow. I only have a limited number of Phoenix Downs. Just in time. Alright, only 2 more rotations of these weird claw attacks. And then we're good to go. Oh boy, it's got good stagger defense. These things are up. No, that's bad. Heal Snow. And back up. Still got hit. No, don't attack that thing. It's gonna claw at us. Ow. Gotta get better at canceling when I get staggered just to save time. And this is how we beat the boss. Really simple. But just as complex as it needs to be for a first boss. It's not meant to actually kill you, it's meant to make you think about stuff. Make you think about how to do things right. And done. Take that. Turns out you didn't win. Because, you know, it's basically a mechanical god. You're not going to beat it by stabbing it a couple times.
What's going on?
Now we get to see all this really cool imagery. Now we all have to pay attention very closely to what we see here. And that was it. It kind of sucks that the way... It's interesting, focusing on design here, that the focus that people get is just this very vague and unclear image of what they have to do. It's not such a specific instruction of, you know, go here and do this. It's just vague flashes of images of what it wants to happen, which to a certain extent are things that are somewhat guaranteed to happen.
When I couldn't see a future, and I was afraid, when the future was clear and it hurt to see, I'd just close my eyes and lose myself in happier days.
And that essentially is the end of the tutorial. The first phase of Final Fantasy XIII. All in all, it's a bit of a slow start, despite the fact that it happens all in the middle of things. So that's to a certain extent because I'm already familiar with the game, so I'm not really learning anything. I'm really just remembering things that I remembered way faster than a person would learn them. So, all in all, it does a good job of telling you what's going on and introducing things in ways that make sense without having it feel like an info dump, because in essence you know already everything you need to know. And now what it's going to focus on in these flashbacks is giving you more explicit flashbacks to it. For example, as a spoiler there, you could have seen on the right that Fang was actually standing at the bar there.
No, but I want to. Just missed her. She said she'd be at the...
Yeah, Fang is right there. You wouldn't recognize her at this point because, you know, she hasn't been introduced in the story, but it's a bit of... It's important that you kind of recognize her.
Now, who'd you say you were looking for?
And of course, yeah, it's very obvious that that's an important character. They wouldn't have had that scene for a random NPC.
Here goes.
And here you get to see.
Making a wish?
And that's actually one of the good things that this game does, is because it starts when everything is happening, there's a lot of this backstory that you don't really get, and this is actually good for getting the character development and how it switches between the main plot and
Don't worry. I'll take
the high speed of the main plot and the slower speed of the build up to it, whereas telling things strictly chronologically would end up with you having a more slow build, even more so than most normal things, because it's just a bunch of people living a normal life when suddenly something bad happens. So it's not exactly the best way to do it, that just having these people have a normal life and then have things suddenly bad happen to them. Getting introduced to them after the bad thing happens and going through flashbacks to get developments to who they were before this is definitely the more engaging way of telling it, because after that something bad happened, their entire lives kind of get derailed by it, and instead of it having that bad thing happen and feel like a derailment, that bad thing happening in the development and the reaction to it is the main story.
Yesterday at the store.
Whereas all of this is just backdrop to it. It's just a way to introduce more of the character's aspects to the audience. And this way it has these slower bits to intersperse the really action-oriented main plot, where they're constantly running from persecution from the cocoon and trying to escape, basically just alive. And in the meantime try to fulfill their focus, whatever it is it may be that focus is.
I'm yours forever. Sarah. My one, my only. Will you marry me?
Yes.
She said yes!
And you get just that lovely scene of Snow and Vanille. And to a certain extent, it probably should have ended there. Because if I remember correctly, this stuff that's to follow is a bit unnecessary. Yeah, it's just them skating around the fireworks.
Gotta love these fireworks. They granted my wish.
Your wish?
Before I asked you to marry me, I wished that you would say yes.
Yeah, it wasn't because of my choice or anything, it was the fireworks that did it.
Then maybe they'll grant mine, too.
What's that?
Not to turn into a crystal.
To have the courage to tell Lightning that I've become become a lassie.
Hey, our engagement is way bigger news. Oh, man, I can't wait to see her face. She'll be my new sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're digital fireworks. And so you get this cool scene. Okay, so the scene was less useless than I remember. But yeah, it is a long, slow interruption. Which is kind of okay for these longer stories when you're talking about JRPGs because they're still...
Snow?
You have time for it.
Yeah.
And is especially good since you started with the digital. What do you think would happen in the middle of a fireworks animation, man?
That was close.
But yeah, you started in the middle of this action thing where you don't really feel you know what's going on, and instead you go to this pretty simple to understand scene
Gorgeous.
that helps you to get a little bit more context to how everyone is related, what's all going on.
All we need. Just you and me.
And is good, actually, music-wise. Some of the songs in this game are actually really good. I do appreciate this particular theme. It comes up in pretty much all the important scenes. And this really helps you form an emotional connection to it so that when they develop it as a musical motif throughout the game, it actually starts to be a very recognizable and a song with good impact.
Thank you, Snow.
As Snow flew into the sky and was never seen again. Yes, I need to save my progress directly after seeing that skippable cutscene. Wouldn't want to have to skip through it. And now, back to here.
Sarah! Is this for real?
And this is interesting. It gives you a sample of just the absolute power that the fal'Cie have over just whatever they feel like, how it just turned this entire lake into a crystal lake. Just because.
This must be Lake Brescia? Well, I guess we fell from up there. And the lake turned to crystal? Help me out here. I mean, did the fal'Cie do this? How in the world did we end up here?
How should I know?
We're alive. How?
Sarah! No one survives a fall from that high. Not without a miracle. Sarah saved us!
Sarah?
Yeah, Lightning's having none of that.
It's all your fault. She got...
Hey! Watch out!
Oh no.
What did I just do?
You used magic. You used the power of lassie. The fal'Cie cursed us. We're lassie now.
Now, one thing to keep in mind is, and one interesting thing is that the mark of the lassie looks a particular way, and it actually changes. Nice. Do not need a tutorial on the paradigm shift. Thank you. The mark of the lassie changes as the game progresses because it's the idea of it all is that the mark is the result. The mark advances whenever you're exposed to extraordinary stress or you consider quitting, essentially. And so every time that the party goes through a massive shock to their beliefs, a massive like setback. The mark advances to get closer and closer to the fail state. And it's just a small little graphical adjustment. It's easiest to see on Snow's arm. Right there, there's the default state of it, and it slowly advances as the game goes forward.
So we really are Lassie.
Looks like it.
You too?
Yep. Right here.
Okay.
Let's see to the last.
Now Hope's super mad. Super sad.
I don't even know you, but you have to go and attack that thing? Just leave me alone. It's your fault. It's your fault, You could have. All of this is your and Sarah's fault.
Watch it!
Yeah, Lightning continues having none of this. So yeah, we enter stage 1 of everything going to hell. People are in denial.
Everything is
Except for Vanille. Vanille's actually been through this before, so she's kind of
Come on.
cool with it.
Off we go.
Lightning, however, remains pissed.
The sea, huh?
Yep.
All right.
For Team Pulse now.
Shops updated, because that's what happens whenever there's a massive infrastructure collapse in the world. All of your digital shops get new merchandise. So now we don't have access to the Crystarium, but we do have this. So gotta have triple Ravager. Kind of Ravager. Really, that's all we need, but this is all Tri-Disaster. Actually, let's have Kerberos. Oh, we can't actually, we can just have Aggression. Okay. Is there a way to rearrange? No, we just gotta change it. So yeah, we haven't got through a tutorial for this. I don't think there is a tutorial for this, actually. But yeah, setting good paradigms is important for doing the game properly. That way everything works better. And actually the paradigm system is really interesting, because then every character has their 3 different roles that they get to switch between, and the combination of those roles has huge impacts on the way that you function in combat. And most importantly, you have the ability to switch between them on the fly. And that's what really makes it dynamic. You have, so it's not about having the one paradigm that works best for all situations. It's about having extremely specialized paradigms and switching between them as the situation arises. Because as I mentioned, having a commando, a sentinel, and a medic is enough to overcome every challenge without much difficulty. You'll beat every challenge in the game by just auto-battling. It'll take a long time, but you won't actually ever lose. But it's not as good as switching to Ravagers to up the stagger, switching to Sentinels when you need to defend yourself, and then getting the medics out only when people need the injury. Need the healing.
I mean, towering.
What? Wait a minute. Hold on now. Do we all have the same dream?
Yep, you are all given the same focus. Yeah, they give you this vague AF vision of what you're supposed to see. Luckily, it was enough for them to recognize what exactly was needed, asked of them.
We all heard that same voice.
You mean that was our focus? But how are we supposed to know what to do from that?
That's the tricky part. The dream's the only hint the Fal'Cie gives us. Figuring out what to do with it, that's our job.
Okay. We're Pulseless, right? Enemies a Cocoon. So, does that mean that our focus is... Are we supposed to...
Save her.
Say what?
Our focus is to protect Cocoon.
Really? Okay. And why's that?
Sarah told us. Let's do it. We're all in this together. I'm gonna look for
Snow
Sarah.
actually acting like a
She ought to
hero,
be nearby.
trying to unite people, and then running away before people are actually united.
Wait!
Snow, almost doing the right thing, and then abandoning it, and then straight up not doing it.
Really?
Still wants none of it. That... No, I don't need the Crystarium tutorial. But I hope that didn't change all of my, I hope that didn't change all of my paradigms.
We can worry about everything else later.
And this will be a good time to go over how it works. Alright, we got massive AoE, so let's switch to aggression. That's one thing that I don't like about this game, is that the first time you switch to a paradigm, every combat, you get that little, hey look, we switched. And then after that you get the faster quick switch. And that really gets in the way that it's every combat rather than the first combat and first switch of every load. Which is specifically what 13.2 does, and it's perfect. The first time you switch those paradigms, you get that long ones. But then for the rest of that play session, you don't get it. And that's what's really important. Oh, hey, we can get some power wristbands if only we had some money. But we didn't open any of those chests, so we just don't really get the chance to do it. So I think this is probably a good place to stop. I'll talk about the Crystarian and shops another time, and I'll just do a little stuff off screen, but for the moment, that will be the end of the first episode of the Final Fantasy XIII Deep Dive. If you have any questions about the game, what you think about it so far, what questions you think I haven't been answering, or anything you want me to talk about, join in next time, leave a comment, and I'll talk about it later. And if you want to see more of that, if there's a different game you want us to deep dive in the future, let us know. Until next time, I'm going to try and get a stream out every Tuesday and /or Wednesday, and so you can expect it on a pretty regular basis. So until next time, have a good time.